Hello, everybody, and welcome to Friday Apocryphal Podcast, your one-stop shop for everything Friday Apocryphal and podcast. And boy, do we have a show for you today. Today, we are covering Jubilees, chapters 1 through 3. Bam, did it. We're still collecting donations, too, for our 666 drive. So, check it out.
Ball is really here for that. That's what he's here for.
Yeah, that's what Ball is here for.
But you know what he is also going to be here for? Our reading of Jubilees.
Incredible. Now, Jubilees, new book, completely different than the last one that we covered.
Yes, it is actually, because we were reading wisdom literature before, and when we were reading Enoch, there was some talk about Genesis, right?
Yeah,
there was some talk about the creation, but then we had a lot of new stuff, right, with the angels. And actually, angels and angelology is something that this book, Jubilees, really does concentrate on. It has a lot of that stuff that Genesis and Exodus didn't cover. So for those of you that do not know, Jubilees is basically a summary and commentary on Genesis and the first part of Exodus.
Yeah.
It doesn't go so far to like the specific buildings of the tabernacle, because that was horrible.
Luckily, it doesn't do that.
Yeah.
So if there's any commentaries on Jubilees, these are double meta.
Yes.
Yep. Commentaries of commentaries.
Yeah.
And I bet in those commentaries they comment on other commentaries.
They do, but also in the future commentators will be commenting on these commentaries on. Yeah, you get it.
Okay. Actually, we are those future commentators because we will be commenting on the commentaries on the commentaries of the commentaries found in Jubilees of Genesis and Exodus.
Yeah. That's what we're doing, guys.
Yep. That
makes perfect sense. All right, so let's talk a little bit about Jubilees, shall we?
Yeah.
So the book that I read through, at least through the introduction, was the Hermenia translation and commentary.
Yes, we also, this is the Hermenia translation and commentary by James C. Vanderkam.
Yeah, and that's who wrote this.
Yep.
This is the commentary half, that's the translation half.
So we're getting our announcements of what we're reading out of the way pretty quickly here.
Yeah. And I will be occasionally referencing stuff in here, so excuse me if sometimes I have to find the right page. I do have them written down, though. All right, so Jubilees, when retelling these narratives, it omits negative views of the ancestors. Because even in Genesis and Exodus, sometimes they weren't portrayed as being perfect. Like, when Moses got what?
Oh, Moses being BTFO'd after hitting the rock.
Yeah.
Or also when Noah was found naked by his sons, or
stuff like that. They're not perfect.
Yeah.
So
this is the sugar-covered version of that.
Yes, but it also, aside from just omitting that stuff, it also adds some narratives.
Oh.
It adds some testaments and some reflections, and that's the commentary part.
Does it also change the order of events where things happen?
I'm not actually sure, but let's talk about what a jubilee is.
Yeah, what the hell is a jubilee?
It's more than just the name of the book, of course. The name of the book comes from something.
It's also an X-Men character from... You remember Jubilee, right?
It was really brief, but yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Learn new things every day.
What his power set is or anything.
It's a girl.
Exactly.
Yeah, Jubilee was the one who, I don't even remember. She, made energy blasts.
There were too many people who did that.
Yeah.
The generic energy blasts.
Yeah. Pretty generic.
Ugh, not helpful.
So back to Bible stuff.
Yeah.
A jubilee is a 7-year period.
Oh.
Yeah. No, I'm wrong. So the 7-year periods are sometimes referred to as weeks of years, but then 7 of these 7-year periods, so 49 years is a jubilee.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Wait, what? Now it's
49. No, 40. I was wrong before. 49 years is a jubilee.
okay.
But it's made up of those of 7-7-year periods, each 7-year period being called a week of years.
Jubilee on the Hebrew lunar calendar or on the Gregorian calendar?
I think it's on. Well, I know it's on a 364-day calendar. So
Then it's probably the Hebrew one. I don't know.
no, it's I think it shares a calendar with Enoch.
Okay.
Either way, yeah. So that's what that means. But okay, so when we're covering the book itself, it spans over 2,000 years, so 2,450 years. But the last 40 of them are predicted. Yeah, exactly. We're getting into some potential apocalyptic stuff.
Predictions.
Yeah.
In Apocrypha.
Yeah, I know.
No way.
So let's talk a little bit about the original language of these.
Let's.
So from what I understand, there was originally a Hebrew version, which was then translated to the Greek, and then the Greek was translated into Latin and Ge'ez. And Ge'ez is basically Ethiopian church language. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the historical language there. And there's also a lot of potential for the Syriac version to have come from the Hebrew or the Greek. So, but it is only fully extant in Ge'ez, and that should be important to know. We do have manuscripts from Qumran, for example. In fact, there's a list in the Hermenia commentary that has all of the manuscripts that contain jubilees found among the Dead Sea Scrolls. Mm-hmm. But it's important to remember that it is only fully extant in Ge'ez. So let's talk a little bit about some of the history of the scholarship. So since the mid-19th century, scholars believed that there was a Hebrew original, mm-hmm. or perhaps it was Aramaic, and some of the phenomenon that were in the Ge'ez was best explained by a Hebrew or Aramaic original. And plus, there were ancient references to a book written in Hebrew that kind of sounded like Jubilees.
Yeah, the oldest of the Qumran copies is 4Q 216. It dates from approximately 125 to 100 BCE.
Which one did you say? 4Q 216?
Yeah.
Yes, and that contains the Prologue, 1 through 2, 4 through 7, and a whole bunch of verses. It's actually contains quite a bit of it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it's there.
So yeah, it went from Hebrew to Greek, maybe Syriac.
Yep.
Then Greek to Latin.
Yeah, but remember that was and then of course a lot of these ideas that we had previously were then pretty much affirmed when the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered.
So there's one partial copy, which is a Latin translation of the Greek from the 5th or 6th century CE. So that's only one. Wasn't common, I guess.
All right, so I'm going to flip to page 20 over here. Let's talk about the genre. So the genre is a really weird one, right? Because it is a commentary in a way, but it also has themes of it also has apocalyptic themes in it, right? Mm-hmm. It has narratives, chronologies, like there's a whole bunch of stuff in it. So it is not the easiest to pin down when it comes to a genre. And this I found interesting. As a genre, which it's kind of hard to see it as a genre, but I see what they're getting at, is it is rewritten scripture. So I do have some stuff on that to describe what I'm talking about, and furthermore, how you can call that a genre itself. So, rewritten scripture. What I got there? Okay. Rewriting can indeed be regarded more broadly as a literary, cultural activity or procedure rather than a generic category. Yet in some cases, the activity becomes so prominent that it defines the category into which the work falls. Jubilees can be said to be one of these writings, but in itself, the category does not tell one very much about the book beyond the existence of a relationship between it and an older text. It is more profitable to extend the investigation by exploring how it rewrites the earlier compositions and for what ends it does so. See below for a treatment of the kinds of rewriting present in Jubilees. So, now he does pretty much at the end of this whole thing go to say that the best way to define it is just rewritten scripture. Although he does point out that in some ways it can be viewed as an apocalypse, or you can view that it has some hints of apocalypticism in it. And for this, he cites J.J. Collins' definition. And if you don't know who J.J. Collins is, he's pretty much the foremost scholar on Jewish apocalypticism. Yep. So he's very good at this stuff.
You've got a few of his books.
Yeah, I do. Big fan of his work. And in fact, once we get into Daniel, he wrote the Hermenia commentary on that one.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Cool.
So J.J. Collins' definition is apocalypse is a genre of revelatory literature with a narrative framework in which a revelation is mediated by an otherworldly being to a human recipient, disclosing a transcendent reality which is both temporal insofar as it envisages eschatological salvation, and spatial insofar as it involves another supernatural world. Yeah, so that is the way that he defines apocalypse, and a lot of this stuff can be seen as, at least a lot of the stuff in Jubilees can be seen as sharing those literary markers. And there are lots of different ways of interpreting all this stuff too. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff. So, and there are specific methods of modification that were taken up by the author. And here's a huge list of them. I'm not going to go over all of them. I'm just going to give a couple examples here. So for additions, Jubilees, again with other ancient works, includes a detailed geographical section about the division of the earth among the sons and grandsons of Noah. The section not only answered the question of why nations were located where they were, but also documented Israel's right to the land as descendants of Shem and Arpachshad. Yeah, so that is an addition. There are also some omissions. Besides additions to Genesis Exodus, the author of Jubilees omits material that apparently did not serve his purposes. Among the deleted passages are the first expulsion of Hagar, so that's Genesis 16:6-14, Abimelech's taking Sarah, that's Genesis 20, the covenant between Abimelech and Abraham, Genesis 21, and it goes on for a few more. So some omissions there. There's also enhancement and defamation of characters, so quite a... There's a lot of ways in which the author, the commentator, whatever you want to call him, changes the narrative. You know, he's focusing on specific things. All right, let's continue here. The date and the authorship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
the earliest Qumran fragment is from 150 BCE to 100 BCE that we have. So I would assume that we can't speculate too much further back than that if that's the oldest thing we have reference.
You would think. So before the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls, there were people who actually thought that it dated to the 1st century CE. Yeah. So that was obviously overturned when the dating of the scrolls came out. But the dates actually spanned quite a while. So they spanned from as early as the 5th or 4th century BCE to as late as the 1st century CE. So there's quite a big range there. But of course, as I mentioned, the later dates were kind of pushed out of the way. one of the important things we should talk about first is whether or not it is the work of one writer. And there are a lot of different hypotheses, but they all end up unconvincing. I'm not going to go over all of them because there's simply too many, but there is an in-depth description and discussion of those hypotheses in this commentary. But the date, so some thought that it was specifically anti-Christian because of some of its prescribed laws, some of the ways it showed things.
Well, it's also focused on Genesis and Exodus.
Yeah. But the thing is, it's not really anti-Christian. So those people placed it to around the 60s CE.
Not
Others,
the 1960s.
No, not the 1960s. Others thought that it was pre-Hellenistic, so they dated it to around 320 BCE. But the conclusion that most scholars have approached is that it dates sometime to the mid-2nd century BCE. So that's the context that we're looking at here.
Cool.
The author, we can't say too much about him. He doesn't really tell us who he is, as happens so often in ancient literature. But it's clear that he was a well-educated, pious Jew, and he held the priesthood in high regard. So, not out of the element for people of the time. And there are many themes that are going to be discussed here, but one of the ones that we should keep in mind that I found really interesting is just the angelology one. Yeah, so that's a theme that is going to be discussed a lot here. It's also possible that he was an Essene. So the Essenes were the group that was believed to have produced the Dead Sea Scrolls, or kept the Dead Sea Scrolls and produced them. So some scholars argue that he was potentially an Essene. So if you do want that argument, I have it right here. Is that right?
Right there?
Yes, it is right here. I got it. Don't you worry about it. I have that he was an Essene down. Yeah, possibly an Essene. So why did a learned Jewish author in the mid-2nd century BCE write the Book of Jubilees? About this, he was somewhat more forthcoming than regarding his identity. First, from all that has been said, it should be clear that the author did not intend for his book to replace Genesis and the first part of Exodus. He not only uses Genesis 1 through Exodus 24 as the basis for his book, but also includes it in the first law. Moreover, he recognizes the authority and authenticity of the biblical material, its revelatory character, that it was revealed through the same angel who was disclosing the contents of his book to him. It seems unlikely that if he meant for Jubilees to supplant Genesis, he would use Genesis and refer to it as he does. The relation of Genesis and Exodus is not as a replacement, but as a guide. And you know what? I totally skipped over the Essene stuff, didn't I?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, you did.
Just talking about reasons for writing.
Yeah.
Well, here's the Essene stuff. Did the writer belong to one of the three ancient philosophies that Josephus mentions? Jelinek was the first to propose that the author was an Essene, and it might seem that in view of the strong level of agreement between Jubilees and the Qumran texts, which are usually associated with a branch of the Essenes, his view was confirmed. It may be that the writer was an Essene, but if so, he was a pre-Qumran Essene, or even a forerunner of the Essenes. At the least, he belongs in the same stream of tradition with them. The author and the Qumran sectarians were, and this is a hell of a word here, predestinarians in a fuller way than the other Jewish groups of the time, and their strict legal approaches also have much in common.
All right. Well, there's some things in the introduction in here that I want to cover before we get into it. Just a little bit about the contents and the themes. So the 50-chapter book is divided into two unequal parts, Chapter 1 and Chapters 2 through 50. The first chapter supplies the setting for what follows. The author chose the scene at Mount Sinai, described in Exodus 24, as the occasion when, on the 16th day of the third month, God and Moses conversed and God arranged for the book of Jubilees to be revealed. The Lord predicts in the opening chapter that Israel will soon violate the laws of the covenant made the previous day and will eventually suffer heavy punishments culminating in exile. In the future, however, a proper relationship will be restored when they will be his righteous people. Moses objected, asking that God give his people a pure heart to obey him now, but the deity insisted that history would have to run its preordained course. Although the Lord speaks directly with Moses in chapter 1, at its end he orders an angel of the divine presence to dictate to Moses from heavenly tablets the contents of the book, the rewriting of Genesis, and more briefly the first half of Exodus. Chapters 2 through 50, the angel relates to Moses a story from creation until the arrival at Mount Sinai. The writer at times omits material from the older books, which you talked about, but the example that he gives here is about getting a wife for Isaac in Genesis 24. And at other times adds sections. Examples are accounts of wars fought against enemies by Jacob and his sons in chapter 34 and 37 through 38. He follows the general storyline in Exodus and Genesis, but along the way introduces many changes that serve his purposes. Some of the more important points and themes that the author makes as he rewrites the older stories are these. I'm not going to read the entire thing on each of them, but I'll give you some of it. God, the Almighty Creator, fashioned a world that operates according to definite laws. So that's one theme. 2, the one God from the beginning entered into a special relationship with the ancestors and thus with Israel, their descendants.
Classic covenant.
Yeah. God and the angels and Israel all observe like the Sabbath and different festivals and stuff as part of that. 3, God determined the course of history from the beginning. Events will take place as he determined, but the Lord's relationship with his people will not end. Right. And 4, the writer based his account on Genesis and Exodus, but he was anxious that his Jewish contemporaries not misunderstand the older stories about Israel's ancestors. So, for example, it appears from Genesis that God revealed almost no laws to the patriarchs, apart from Sabbath, possibly, the prohibition against consuming blood, and circumcision. But in Jubilees, Enoch, Noah, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Moses were the recipients of laws and lived in accordance with them. They were also at times the human inaugurators of practices, e.g. festivals, revealed by God / the angels. So those are the major themes that are popping up throughout this book.
Oh boy, I can't wait. Now, before we do hop into the reading proper, there's a preface to the book itself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's, before the first chapter.
There's a prologue.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's a prologue. Are you ready for the reading? For the reading proper? Yeah. Great. All right, let me talk about the prologue here. So the Book of Jubilees begins with a rather full statement about the scope and setting of the composition. A prologue is an introductory feature found in other ancient writings. For example, Josephus prefaces such statements to his Jewish War, Antiquities, and also against Appian. In these cases, the writers mention not only what the reader is about to encounter, but also deal with the purpose of the composition. So similar to prologues now, really nothing has changed. Except for the length, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the prologue underscores several points the author wishes to impress upon the reader. So once you start reading, it'll be very stop and start.
Okay.
Let's just say that.
Prologue. These are the words regarding the divisions of the times for the law and for the testimony, for the events of the years, for the weeks of their jubilees throughout all the years of eternity, as he related them, he being God probably, to Moses on Mount Sinai when he went up to receive these stone tablets. The C and E are underlined. The law and the commandment by the word of the Lord, that's underlined, as he told him that he should come up to the summit of the mountain. So that was underlined.
That's amazing.
The second half of the word mountain was not underlined. So what is going on here?
All right. So the name of the book actually comes from that prologue.
Yeah.
And it's been found in quite a variety of forms.
Yo, was that it?
That was the prologue, yes.
Right.
Yeah. That was the prologue. You got it. Wow, that was
You also misspelled prologue.
I wrote pro and log.
I see that. So yeah, let's talk about the name here. So the first words that define the message of the book are regarding the divisions of the times. Now that was a name that was used for it. There was a book of the divisions of the times into their jubilees and weeks. There's a whole bunch of other stuff from Jerome, and honestly it gets a little messy, but the thing it's describing is generally the same thing. So Jubilees is said to be a book about divisions. And the Hebrew word, as shown by the passages adduced above, kufale, I guess, the term is used for divisions of various sorts. For example, lands or groups of people, yada, yada. One specialized context in which it is employed is the description of the groupings of priests and gatekeepers. Oh, remember that? All those gatekeepers. And
yeah.
Wow, that was a lot.
Okay, so the underlining just says that the letters or words are preserved on a Hebrew fragment.
Ah, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Gotcha.
So I'm not going to yell them.
Oh, man, that was just so jarring to hear
It was
words
jarring, yes.
partially yelled.
Yeah.
Just parts of words. I liked it, but oh well.
Yes.
Darn.
Anyways, the prologue further specifies that the divisions are for the events of the years, for the weeks of their jubilees throughout all the years of eternity. The word translated the events of is more literally the work of, Gebra. While it is a highly flexible term in meaning, the sense here, as translators have consistently recognized, appears to be that Jubilees not only supplies a chronological framework, but fills it with an ordered sequence of events. And we have seen that come out time and time again, especially with where we currently are in the Old Testament. It especially came up in Ecclesiastes.
Yeah.
Time for everything.
Yep. Time to X, a time to Y, a time to A, a time to B.
Yeah.
Yep. So, should I continue?
Yeah.
Okay. The setting and purpose of the book, Chapter 1.
Ooh.
We start
exciting.
with a narrative setting for the first 4 verses. So, these are, they're not the longest verses. During the first year of the Israelites' exodus from Egypt, in the 3rd month, on the 16th of this month, the Lord said to Moses, "Come up to me to the mountain. I will give you the 2 stone tablets, the law and the commandment that I have written, so that you may teach them." So Moses went up the mountain of the Lord. The glory of the Lord took up residence on Mount Sinai, and a cloud covered it for 6 days.
Yeah, so there is some stuff here we should discuss. So that first verse, a lot of it is actually a quotation of Exodus 24:12. So if you look at this side to side here. The Lord said to Moses, "Come up to me on the mountain and wait there. I will give you the tablets of stone with the law and the commandment, which I have written for their instruction." So, yeah, he's quoting Exodus 24:12 there. Furthermore, on the last verse you just read there.
The glory of the Lord.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Jubilees 1:2 combines clauses from Exodus 24:13, and Moses went up into the mountain of God, and 16a, the glory of the Lord settled on Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it for 6 days. Exodus has some repetitious sections in this part of the story. Note verse 15, then Moses went up on the mountain, and the cloud covered the mountain. Jubilees does not reproduce doublets and does not include the material about the elders, Aaron and Hur. It seems unlikely that the author omitted material through haplography. The shorter text serves to highlight Moses and eliminate repetitions. The account of the revelation in Jubilees is thus a learner form of the more verbose presentation in Exodus 24, but the context for it is the same awesome, numinous confrontation that Exodus depicts. A few letters of the words, the glory of the Lord, can be read on 4Q 216.
All right. When he summoned Moses into the cloud on the 7th day, he saw the glory of the Lord like a fire blazing on the summit of the mountain.
Yeah, and that's a quotation of 24:16 through 17.
Moses remained on the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights while the Lord showed him what had happened beforehand, as well as what was to come. He related to him the divisions of the times for the law and for the testimony. Yeah. They did it again.
Okay.
They ended an underline in the middle of a
Gotcha.
word.
So one of the notes here, did you already finish verse 4?
Yeah, that's the end of 1 through 4.
Okay. So there are several issues involved in interpreting what terms and expressions in verse 4 regarding what God made known to Moses. The Ethiopic textual tradition mentions two categories: what had happened beforehand, literally what was first, and what was to come. In verse 26, however, where the same terms occur, the text includes a third category: what was first, what was last, and what is to come. The Hebrew text for this part of verse 4 is not preserved in 4Q 216, but in 111, the reconstructed portion would leave a rather short text if one did not insert the extra item, what was last. The translation has not changed to add the third element since there is no manuscript evidence for it, but it is possible that verse 4 in the Hebrew original referred to the three categories of material mentioned in verse 26.
All right.
And I thought that was neat.
Yeah, that's neat.
Yeah.
There's some differences in the Ethiopic and the upcoming verses.
Yes.
So I'll point those out when we get to them. So, conversation between the Lord and Moses. This is 1:5 through 26. The Lord's first speech, 1:5 through 18. He said to him, "Pay attention to all the words that I tell you on this mountain. Write them in a book so that their generations may know that I have not abandoned them because of all the evil they have done in breaking the covenant between me and your children that I am making today on Mount Sinai for their offspring." So,
Yeah, it's very Deuteronomy-like.
yeah, this word breaking here, the note says, although the manuscript reads a verb meaning lead astray or corrupt, the context shows that a word meaning break is required, as in Deuteronomy 31:20. So, it will be that when all of these things befall them, they will recognize that I have been more faithful than they in all their judgments and in their curses. For curses, the Ethiopic manuscript reads actions. Curses is from 4Q 216. Or it says it very likely has curses.
Sure.
And I'm noticing that where Vanderkam can, he's giving preference to the Qumran.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. They will recognize that I have indeed been with them. Now, you write this entire message that I am telling you today, because I know their defiance and their stubbornness, even before I bring them into the land that I promised by oath to their ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. To your posterity, I will give the land that flows with milk and honey. When they eat and are full, they will turn after other gods. This is foreign gods in Ethiopic manuscripts.
Sure.
Who will not save them from any afflictions. Then the testimony is to correspond with this testimony. So correspond there. Most manuscripts read testify, but 4Q216 has answer. Deuteronomy 31:21 lies behind the passage. Correspond is an attempt to express the sense of answer in the context. So yeah, correspond.
Was that
that was
verse 9?
That was verse 8.
Verse 8? Okay.
Yeah, I'll read verse 9 and then let you comment.
Okay.
For they will forget all my commandments, everything that I command you, and will follow the nations, their idols, and their abominations. They will serve their gods, and this will provide an obstacle for them, an affliction, a pain, and a trap. So, like we see in both Exodus and, I think, wasn't it?
I mean, it was in
Second Chronicles.
It was everywhere.
Here are your gods.
Oh yeah, that was in Second Kings.
Second Kings,
Yeah.
right?
I think it was Second Kings. No, was it First Kings? It may have been First Kings.
Right.
No, it was First Kings. Yeah, it was First Kings and in Exodus. But this imagery and them following other gods, it comes up so many times.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, almost all the time it comes up. I mean, there are references. You have Deuteronomy and Psalms and the entire Deuteronomistic history in general. It's absolutely everywhere. Either way, to express the results of serving alien gods, the writer adopts other terms for the Hebrew from the Hebrew Bible, and as with law and testimony, finds the appropriate words in Isaiah 8. There, after he exhorts the prophet to fear the Lord, the deity says of himself, he will become a sanctuary, a stone one strikes against him. A stone one strikes against. For both houses of Israel he will become a rock one stumbles over, a trap and a snare for the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and many among them shall stumble. They shall fall and be broken, they shall be snared and taken. The terms for the various items over which one trips or in which one is caught overlap in the two texts. And the continuation in Jubilees 1:10 uses the subject many in two of the verbs, be captured or taken and fall, in Isaiah 8:15, as confirmed by 4Q216.
That's in verse 10.
Yeah.
Many will be destroyed. They will be captured and will fall into the enemy's control because they've abandoned my statutes, my commandments, my covenantal festivals, my Sabbaths, my holy things, which they have hallowed for me among them, my tabernacle and my temple that I sanctified for myself in the middle of the land so that I could set my name on it and that it could live there.
Yeah, so the expression in the middle of the land may mean no more than within the land. And here he is citing 11QTA. I'm not 100% sure what that is. And also then later Jubilees 49:18. While God's living among his people is a common expression, the language of God's putting his name in the sanctuary is, of course, quintessentially Deuteronomic, as is the image of the name dwelling there.
They will make for themselves high places.
Of course they will.
Sacred groves. Asherah, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And carved
Asherim,
images.
Yeah. It's all here.
Yep. They will bow to all the works of their error, worshiping the creations of their own hands, right? This kind
but
of
those
thing.
things they're just creations of hands.
Mm.
They can't do anything for you.
They will sacrifice their children to demons and to every product conceived by their erring minds.
So that's an interesting one.
That's pretty intense.
Yeah, the note there on demons, right? Just trying to find the right thing here. Berger thinks that in Jubilees, the expression sacrificing children to demons refers to mixed marriages with non-Israelites.
What?
That seems unlikely in this particular context. Jubilees uses giving children to Molech for such marriages, and the children who result from them, see 30:10. The last expression in 111 looks very much like a restatement of they will bow to all the works of their error. So, yeah, apparently some scholar called Berger thinks
this is about race mixing.
yes, although that comes up later. Well, it's still not a good thing in this book, race mixing, because why would it be? Yeah, that's not the thing intended.
Great. Wonderful. I prefer the literal interpretation.
I mean, me too, but
I will send witnesses to them so that I may testify to them, but they will not listen and will kill the witness. They will persecute those too who study the law, Torah. They will neglect everything and will begin to do evil in my presence. Then I will hide my face from them. I will deliver them into the control of the nations for captivity, for devastation, and for devouring. I will remove them from the land and disperse them among all the nations. They will forget all my laws, all my commandments, and all my verdicts. They will forget beginnings of the month, Sabbath, festival, jubilee, and covenant. Now, this does happen where they have to rediscover the law in the Deuteronomistic history.
yeah,
portion.
with Huldah and Josiah.
Mhm.
So there's some notes here. It's reasonable to think that the sentences about killing the witnesses and persecuting the ones who seek the Torah are parallel to each other. There are a number of passages in the Hebrew Bible that mention killing or attempting to kill prophets. Happens plenty. Ezra in Nehemiah 9:26 mentions this is a retrospective about Israel's waywardness, its disobedience to the law. Nevertheless, they were disobedient and rebelled against you and cast your law behind their backs and killed your prophets who had warned them in order to turn them back to you. And they committed great blasphemies.
After this, they will return to me from among the nations with all their minds, all their souls, and all their strength. Then I will gather them from among all the nations, and they will search for me so that I may be found by them when they have searched for me with all their minds and with all their souls. I will rightly disclose to them abundant peace. I will plant them as a righteous plant with all my mind and with all my soul.
Yeah.
So here God has a mind and a soul.
So what verse is that exactly?
This is halfway through verse 16. There is a textual note that says when it says we'll plant them, the Ethiopic reads, I will banish or change them, which seems inappropriate in a covenant in the context offering promises. So God has a mind and a soul.
Yeah, so there is a note here on that. They discuss the idea of the righteous plant. That comes up a lot, especially in the Psalms.
But here, the mind and the soul are not the same thing.
Right. So let's see. Jubilees 116 entails that there could be a break in the history of the righteous plant. The lapsed righteous plant will require replanting. The Lord's act is done with the same wholehearted character as Israel's act was performed, with all my mind and with all my soul. It should be noted that Jubilees does not mention planting Israel in the land, as the Jeremiah passage does. So it really doesn't discuss too much about that. It just means like he's fully invested in it, I guess.
I mean, it's interesting from the the religious metaphysics.
Yeah.
They will become a blessing, not a curse. They will become the head, not the tail. I will build my temple among them and will live with them. I will be their God, and they will be my true and righteous people. I will neither abandon them nor become alienated from them, for I am the Lord, their God.
Spoiler alert. He flip-flops on those.
Yeah, that didn't work out too well in the grand scheme of things, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, now we go into Moses' intercession for the nation, which is verses 19 through 21.
Yep.
Then Moses fell prostrate and prayed and said, Lord, my God, do not allow your people and your heritage to go along in the error of their minds, and do not deliver them into the control of the nations, with the result that they rule over them, lest they make them sin against you. May your mercy, Lord, be lifted over your people. Create for them a just spirit. May the spirit of Belial not rule over them, so as to bring charges against them before you and to make them stumble away from every proper path, so that they may be destroyed from your presence. Interesting. The spirit of Belial.
Yeah. Let's talk about that here.
Yeah.
So, first and foremost, this is kind of a rewriting of Deuteronomy 9:25 to 29.
Mm.
So I want you to look at that verse while I read this section.
Mm-hmm.
Throughout the 40 days and 40 nights that I lay prostrate before the Lord, when the Lord intended to destroy you, I prayed to the Lord and said, Lord God, do not destroy the people who are your very own possession, whom you redeemed in your greatness, whom you brought out of Egypt with a mighty hand. So I'm sure you can start seeing the similarities there.
Yeah. It goes on here to say, they are your people and your heritage, whom you have rescued from Egyptian control by your great power.
Yeah.
Create for them a pure mind and a holy spirit. May they not be trapped in their sins from now to eternity.
Yeah. And then at Deuteronomy 9:29, for they are the people of your very own possession, whom you brought out by your great power.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it is a rewriting of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's go back to the Belial thing. So Belial, later would be used as like kind of like another name for Satan or the devil in later traditions. So let's discuss that a bit. In verse 19, Jubilee says that Moses fell on his face. See Numbers 14:5, where both Moses and Aaron fall on their faces, and 16:4, where Moses does so. But in Deuteronomy 9:18 and 25, he falls, the verb is used twice, before the Lord. Deuteronomy 9:26 adds that he prayed to him, whereas the Moses of Deuteronomy speaks of the Exodus, the covenant with the ancestors and the reputation the Lord will have among the Egyptians if he annihilates his people. The Moses of Jubilees, while mentioning the Exodus, focuses on letting Israel continue in their sins, thus falling under the power of the nations and of the spirit of Belial, with the terrible results such a fate would produce. And then he shows the chart there.
Mm-hmm.
You can continue reading. I am gonna look for. Actually, here's something on Belial as well.
Good.
So they're trying to in this section. There's a discussion of a translation here. So it's going to be about that, but there's more to it. So Jubilees reworks the statements regarding Israel's sinful character in Deuteronomy 9:27. In Deuteronomy, Moses asks God to ignore Israel's stubbornness, wickedness, and sin, but in Jubilees, where he addresses the deity as Lord my God, he asks for a more lasting solution to the problem. He speaks of not allowing the people to continue in their sinful ways and is concerned that they that they not be ruled by the nations who would make them sin. A strong emphasis in Jubilees is on the need to remain apart from the nations. But Moses also mentions the need for a just spirit that God is to create. He does not want the spirit of Belial to rule over them. This is one of the two places where the term Belial, or in the Ethiopic Ge'ez, Belihor, appears in the book, also 1533. As these are the only two places where the word occurs, it is possible that in Jubilees it has a meaning similar to its usage in the Hebrew Bible, where it is a noun meaning worthless, ruin, or destruction.
Yeah, it says...
One could then translate the phrase as the worthless spirit, in contrast to the just spirit for which Moses prays. The same verb of ruling is used in the case of the spirit of Belial / worthless spirit and the nations, as if the two are related, as they certainly are in Jubilees.
Yeah, that bit in 1533, it just says, all the people of Belial will leave their sons uncircumcised just as they were born.
Mm.
So that's all the references to Belial that we get in the book.
Yeah.
It does seem like a generic, like, foreign god thing.
Worthless.
And the KJV uses that language.
It does, yes.
Yeah, worthless people. So now we're getting into God's second speech, which is 22 through 26. And the Lord said to Moses, I know their contrary nature, their way of thinking, and their stubbornness. Oh, that's not stereotyping at all. They will not listen until they acknowledge their sins and the sins of their ancestors. After this, they will return to me in a fully upright manner with all their minds and their souls. I will cut away the foreskins of their minds and the foreskins of their descendants' minds.
The foreskins of their minds. Everybody.
Their descendants' minds.
Presumably, what he means is that he's going to purge foreign ideals from their minds.
Yeah, he's going to make a covenant in their minds.
Mm-hmm.
Make them pious.
I will create a Holy Spirit for them and will purify them in order that they may not turn away from me from that time forever.
He's going to make him righteous.
Yep, forever.
And beat some of that righteousness into you.
He's also going to steal their free will.
Yes.
He's going to purify them in order that they may not turn away from him forever. So, yeah, free will gone. Their souls will adhere to me and to all my commandments.
Oh, apparently minds there is literally hearts.
Wow.
Yeah.
They will perform my commandments. I will be their father, and they will be my children.
And it's a reference here to Deuteronomy 36. Moreover, the Lord your God will circumcise your heart and the heart of your descendants, so that you will love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul, in order that you may live. Yeah.
All of them will be called children of the living God. Can you imagine a church name?
Don't they have something like that?
I bet there is a church of the children of the living God
something
somewhere.
Like that, yeah. I've heard something along those lines.
I'll have to Google it later. Every angel and every spirit will know them. They will know that they are my children, and I am their father in a just and proper way, and that I love them. Now you write all these words that I tell you on this mountain. What is first and what is last and what is to come during all the divisions of the times that are for the law and for the testimony and for the weeks of their jubilees until eternity, until the time when I descend and live with them throughout all the ages of eternity.
So that, though he is still addressing Moses, God changes the subject. His concern here is not to predict Israel's ways and his response, but to prepare the document. legal evidence that will serve the function elaborated in 1:5-6, where he also commanded Moses to write, as in verse 7. Here, for the first time since verses 5 and 7, the Lord mentions the location of the conversation between himself and Moses, quote, on this mountain. One could easily infer that God will be the one communicating to Moses the comprehensive message outlined here. The verb translated I tell you could as well be rendered I will tell you. The sequel at least makes clear that God is not telling Moses to write down what he has just told him, as the description of what he is to write does not match with the contents of 1:5-25. The summary of the message Moses is to record is far-reaching and parallels the wording in 1:4. So in verse 26, which you just read, keep that in mind, all right? And then in verse 4, back in verse 4, what had happened beforehand.
To descend and live with them throughout all of eternity.
Yeah, what had happened beforehand, what was to come, the divisions of the times for the law and for the testimony. So lots of stuff there. And of course, that's the verse that gives a little bit of evidence to thinking that there should be an inclusion of something else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in the other verse. Either way.
Okay, so there's a narrative note about the angel and divine words about the future, which is 27-28.
Yep.
Then he told the angel of the presence to dictate to Moses. The verb dictate is very likely the reading in 4Q2:16. At this place, the Ethiopic manuscripts have write. The explanation for the difference is that the Ethiopic reading assumes this verb is the simple form write, whereas the Hebrew shows the form as causative, cause to write / dictate. By reading write in this passage, the Ethiopic manuscript introduces a contradiction into the book, since Moses, not the angel, is listed as the writer of Jubilees in other places.
Yeah.
So, he told the angel of the presence to dictate to Moses, starting from the beginning of the creation until the time when, quote, my temple is built among them throughout the ages of eternity.
Yeah. In fact, there's more about the translation that you just mentioned there.
Yeah.
So the reading is consistent with and of course to dictate to Moses. The reading is consistent with the thesis that the conflicting statements in the Ethiopic version regarding who does the writing, the angel or Moses, are a product of a failure on the part of the Greek translator of Jubilees to distinguish between kal and hifil. And of course, they're meaning the same, similar meanings in Greek. In the Greek verb he chose. Recovery of the original text removes this argument regarding a contradiction from Davenport's theory about redactions in Jubilees 1. That's funny. Some dude was like, hey, there's a redaction here. And then they discovered the manuscripts, and they're like, no, there wasn't a redaction. It was just a mistranslation.
Great.
That's good stuff.
So this is still what God is commanding to the angel here. The Lord will appear in the sight of all, and all will know that I am the God of Israel, the father of all Jacob's children, and king on Mount Zion for the ages of eternity. Then Zion and Jerusalem will be holy. So they're not holy yet.
Be whole.
They will be. Good job.
Holy.
I hate all of you.
Okay, now we get a narrative note about the revelation and its scope in 129. The angel of the presence, who was going along in front of the Israelite camp, took the tablets that told of the divisions of the years from the time the law and the testimony were created for the weeks of their jubilees, year by year in their full number, and their jubilees from the time of the first creation until the time of a new creation, when the heavens, the earth, and all their creatures will be renewed like the powers of the sky and like all the and like all the creatures of the earth until the time when the temple of the Lord will be created in Jerusalem on Mount Zion, where it says there,
the time of the first creation until, there's a footnote, the Ethiopic text reads from the time of the new creation. But the context suggests that something like the bracketed words have been omitted. Okay.
Yeah. I can get into that a little bit.
Well, let me finish the verse first.
Sure.
All the luminaries will be renewed for the purpose of healing, health, and blessing for all the elect ones of Israel, so that it may remain this way that from that time throughout all the days of the earth. And that is the end of chapter 1. I got a pee.
Yeah, okay. So let's talk about that a little bit here. I will talk about it. He's so rude sometimes. Okay. So a little bit of a note there about the differing translations, the readings, the variant readings in 129. So, the divisions of the years from the time of the law and the testimony were created for the weeks of their jubilees year by year in their full number, and their jubilees from the time of the first creation until the time of the new creation. The assertion in verse 29 includes the elements that figure in other instances, though, as with them, in slightly variant form. So if you go back to the prologue and some of the other verses here, the prologue 1:4 and also verse 26 and 27, it includes a lot of the same things: the division of years, law and testimony, the weeks of jubilees, and of course the word forever. And then the one difference that Ruben already noted was this new creation. And of course in the other verses there is I descend and live with them, and my temple is built among them. That's about as close as we're going to get. But the agreements in scope and in wording favor the thesis that the prologue and chapter 1 are a unity, not a composite structured from several sources. The concept of a new creation is familiar from Isaiah 65, 17 through 18, which, by the way, this concept of a new creation also comes up again in Revelation at the very end. Or I guess it's not really a new creation necessarily, kind of in a way. It's a new heaven. But that kind of goes into this thing from Isaiah: for I am about to create new heavens and a new earth. So that's the note there. I'm about to create I'm about to create Jerusalem as a joy. So that idea does get taken up in Revelation. Furthermore, this last verse here, a remarkable verse concludes a remarkable chapter, though some critics have carved up the verse into several sources. The passage seems a unity and serves as a superb summary and forecast. It starts by telling how the angel obeyed the order he received in verse 27, but here the writer discloses more information about him. So the whole point is that it's a unity, although some people have historically tried to cut it up into different divisions.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, that was the end of chapter 1. If you're enjoying the stream so far,
that was chapter 1.
Yeah, give us a like, share it around, share it to all your friends on all of your social media, on your Instagrams, on your Facebooks,
on your TikToks,
on your Snapchats, on your, I don't know what else is there.
I don't know.
Minds?
Graffiti.
Minds? Wow.
Yeah, on your Minds page.
Or your literal minds.
Yep.
Which I will circumcise.
Great.
Your literal mind. I'm prepared to do that.
Very happy for you.
Okay. You should be happy. You're going to be righteous and shit.
I'm so happy.
Yeah. All right, so we can hop into chapter 2. I'm not sure if you have any opening notes for chapter 2.
Once the author has provided a weighty introduction to the book, he naturally begins with his rewriting or representation of Genesis with the story about creation. The account in Jubilees gives a numbered list of all the works that God made in 6 days of creation and highlights several elements, including some that are not present in Genesis 1:1 through 2:9. When the writer reaches the first Sabbath, he greatly expands on the lines in Genesis 2:1 through 3 into a major section about the Sabbath. Its holy and blessed character, the two groups privileged to observe it, the two leading classes of angels, and the people of Israel.
Yeah, class of angels. It's gonna be a fun one.
Yep. And some of the laws for ensuring its sanctity and blessedness. The creation account in Jubilees takes the form of a retrospective. The angel of the presence dictates to Moses what happened in the first week of the world as the initial part of his revelation to Moses. The material in Jubilees is a rewriting of Genesis 1:1 through 2:9, but unlike Genesis, Jubilees offers the reader a single story of creation. It is based primarily on Genesis 1:1 through 2:3, but draws elements from Genesis 2:4b through 9. Note that the use of the Lord God for the deity and mention of the Garden of Eden. The author rewrote Genesis's creation materials, and his special emphasis and concerns emerged from comparing his text with the extant versions and copies of Genesis. The text of it known by him may not have been exactly the same as any ancient version available today, yet it was probably very close to the attested wordings. To no one's surprise, he retained Genesis's insistence that God is the Almighty and sole creator. In fact, he makes the point even more unmistakable by removing from the text any words that could be taken to suggest otherwise.
Classic, huh?
Yep. So there are some differences.
I'm sure you could point those out.
And we'll be pointing them out as they come along.
Fantastic.
That's not the main portion of the thing, even. There's so much commentary.
Yeah,
Holy
there really
crap.
is.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
Yep. All right.
On the Lord's orders, the angel of the presence said to Moses, "Write all the words about the creation, how on the 6th day the Lord God completed all his works, everything that he had created, and kept Sabbath on the 7th day."
So this is presumably sidestepping the implication one could draw from the wording of Genesis 2:2 found in the textual tradition represented in the Masoretic text, and on the 7th day God finished the work that he had done. God does not work on the initial 7th day in Jubilees, a point the writer underscores with an additional phrase: he completed all his works, everything that he had created.
Yeah, he sanctified it for all ages and set it as a sign for all his works.
So there's no note about the duration in Genesis 2:3 about the sanctification, but it's for all ages here.
For on the first day, it's interesting that he actually starts with the 6th and with the Sabbath. For on the first day he created the heavens that are above, the earth, the waters, and all the spirits who serve before him, namely, the angels of the presence, the angels of holiness, the angels of spirits of fire, the angels of the winds that blow, the angels of the spirits of the clouds for darkness, ice, hoarfrost, dew, snow, hail, and frost, the angels of the thunder, and for the angels of the winds. And then there's this big textual break here. The brackets enclosing an empty space represent the fact that there is room on 4Q 216 verse 8 for additional material here, but what it is not known because the other versions supply no readings at this point. What a bummer. And the angels of the spirits for cold and heat, for winter and summer, and for all the spirits of his creatures that he made in the heavens and that he made on earth and in every place. There were also the depths, darkness and dawn, light and evening that he prepared through his knowledge. So wow, lots of
there's
stuff.
There's a lot of stuff going on in there. So it's noteworthy. So they list some great works from God, creation of the heaven, earth, water, spirits, depths, darkness and dawn, light and evening, which are all taken from Genesis 1 through 5.
Yeah.
It's significant that in its rewriting, Jubilees doesn't refer to a formless void, as in Genesis 1:2.
Yeah.
In this way, nothing precedes God's first act of creation. Moreover, there is nothing that falls outside of his creative power, an emphasis harmonizing with the idea that he had no assistance whatsoever in creating the universe.
Yes, so this, as what we'll see later, I'm sure, more of removes the vagueness that you could question those things about the creation myth.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you could say, well, what was the void? I got to ask more questions about that. No, you don't. Look here, this doesn't even come up.
So
he just kind of, implies that he did it all just like that, including, this heavenly entourage. And it's interesting that the word angels and spirits are used differently here, so I'm guessing they're probably different words. But in all of these cases, some of them I think are different. Because even though the word angels pops up and spirits pops up in other places, they're describing different things. Some things are just kind of more natural, you know, and other things like angel of the presence and the angels of holiness. Those are different. I mean, they're probably, holiness, I could kind of see that in this theology being kind of an aspect of life as just like another attribute that things have, some sense of holiness, right?
Mm-hmm.
I could see that. Maybe kind of like a natural force even.
So there's a lot on these angels in this verse, in this commentary.
I'm sure.
So forgive me if I prattle on a bit. The angels are clearly the most prominent creation of the first day. They appear as item 4 on the list, the middle of the creation of 7. The author had to change the order of Genesis where the depths, the deep, number 5 in Jubilees, precede the spirit/wind. The latter term, ruach, I think. No, that's different. That's different. Okay, so there are some Hebrew terms without vowels that I can't read here, but they use it for angels. Was the trigger for the idea that the angels were created on the first day. The text of Jubilees does not say explicitly that there were 7 kinds of angels, but that seems the most likely number, although a variety of textual variants makes it difficult to be certain. All of the categories, whatever their number, are said to serve before him. Serving before him can be priestly language, but there is no indication that all the types of angels act as priests. Only the first 2 classes do. 7 types of angels fall into more than one category. The first 2 classes are distinguished from the remaining 5 by not only being the initial 2 in the list, but also by the privileges they alone enjoy elsewhere in Jubilees. The angels of the presence and the angels of holiness are the only ones mentioned by name in passages other than 2:2. The privileges accorded to them are the following. 1, they keep Sabbath with God and Israel. Their duties do not require that they be active all 7 days of the week, hence they are able to rest on the 7th day and hallow it. 2, they were created circumcised. And 3, they serve in the heavenly temple as the descendants of Levi minister in the earthly sanctuary. So the angels of the presence...
Wait, so hold on. The angels serve as part of temple proceedings?
Yes, divine temple proceedings.
Gotcha.
In like heaven or something.
Okay.
So the plural form is attested to for the angels of the presence in 1QSB. As the name suggests, they're the ones who serve most immediately in the Lord's presence. The title in the singular appears more frequently in Jubilees because one member of this elite class is the angel who reveals Jubilees 2 through 50 to Moses. The revealing angel often uses first-person plural pronouns to designate what are most likely the other members of the angels of the presence, or at least some of them. 2, the angels of holiness. The name does not occur in the HB, but figures fairly frequently in the Qumran texts. It may be, as André Cacot argues, that the term holiness was influenced by Isaiah 6:3, where the seraphim continually say, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts."
Gosh,
No, that would
of
make
course.
sense, yeah.
I remember that.
Further, these angels are in 2 cases called just the holy ones, an angelic designation attested in the HB, Hebrew Bible.
Yeah.
So they also keep Sabbath, were created, circumcised, and minister in the heavenly sanctuary. The remaining 5 kinds of angels lack the specific characteristics assigned to the first 2 types and supervise meteorological elements. And just rolling through it really quickly here. There's a spirit of fire. There's angels of the wind, which sometimes this is cherub. So cherub and wind are poetic parallels at times. The angels of the spirits of the clouds for darkness, ice, hoarfrost, dew, snow, hail, and frost. Among the angels listed in 1st Enoch 6:7 is Ananel, whose name consists of Anan, cloud, and El, God. Right. So a similar list of phenomena occurs in Psalm 148:8, where among the created entities called upon to praise the Lord are fire and hail, snow and frost, stormy wind, fulfilling his command.
Yeah. So this is more of the same. God kind of pretty much controls everything. The plan is set in motion, and things are just doing the thing that they are set out to do by him.
Yes. So the angels of the thunder, 1st Enoch names Ramel, that is Ra'am, thunder, and El. The angel of the spirits for cold and heat, for winter and summer, and for all the spirits of the creatures that he made on the heavens, that he made on the earth, and every place. The description's lengthy. The line very likely deals with just one kind of angel, the one supervising the weather as it changes.
You got to make sure everything is flowing properly.
Yeah. In the Enochic list, there is no comparably named angel, although Setuel, the winter of God, appears. So that is one thing. So yeah, there are all these different classes of angels with different features.
Yeah.
And it goes on for a few more pages.
Yeah.
But,
We don't have to get into all of it.
We get the idea, right?
Yeah. Then we saw his works and blessed him regarding all his works. We offered praise before him because he had made 7 great works on the first day. 7 great works. That's just the things he did.
Yep.
On the second day, he made a firmament between the waters, and the waters were divided on that day. Half of them went up above the firmament, and half of them went down below the firmament, which was in the middle, above the surface of the whole earth. This was the only work that he made on the second day. Must have taken a while.
Pretty hard stuff.
Yeah. On the third day, he did as he said to the waters, that they should pass from the surface of the whole earth to one place, and that the dry land should appear. The waters did so, as he told them. They withdrew from the surface of the earth to one place apart from the firmament, and dry land appeared. And on that day he created for it all the seas, each with the places where they collected, all the rivers, and the places where the waters collected in the mountains and on the whole earth, all the reservoirs, all the dew of earth, the seed that is sown with each of its kinds, all that sprouts, the fruit trees, the forests, and the Garden of Eden which is in Eden for enjoyment and for food.
So the final entry for day 3 is the Garden of Eden.
Yeah, these 4 great types he made on the 3rd day.
Yeah, so he's incorporating Genesis 2 into Genesis 1. Creation of the fruit trees on day 3 naturally brought in its train the idea that this is the time when the garden, which was full of trees from which one could eat, came into being. The writer reproduces the note from Genesis 2:8 that the garden was part of the larger area of Eden. There's Eden. There's this place around Ethiopia, right?
Well, it was from a river, right? Like at the end of the river or something.
I think so.
Yeah, but the land of Cush that is mentioned in Genesis is Ethiopia. Or modern day Ethiopia.
All right.
Yeah. On the 4th day, the Lord made the sun, the moon, and the stars. He placed them in the heavenly firmament to shine on the whole earth, to rule over day and night, and to separate between light and darkness.
So here it says sun and moon, where Genesis calls them the greater and smaller light.
Well, I mean, that designation makes sense.
Yeah.
The Lord appointed the sun as a great sign above the earth for days, Sabbaths, months, festivals, years, Sabbaths of years, jubilees, and all cycles of the years. So designating a solar calendar.
Yeah, so in this part in Genesis, it says, instead of saying that it's a sign above the earth, it says to give light upon the earth. To rule over the day and over the night. Instead of for days, Sabbaths, months, festivals.
Yeah. But yeah, the designation of the sun being for that solar calendar.
Mm-hmm.
It separates between light and darkness and serves for well-being so that everything that sprouts and grows on the earth may prosper. These 3 types he made on the 4th day. So it's interesting that it's not just it gives the things that he made on that day, but it can also separate them into pieces, right? Because if someone just says, the heavenly bodies were made on this day, you know what they mean. But the writer of this actually separates it into what it means. Mm. So that was the 4th day.
Yes.
On the 5th day, he created the great sea monsters within the watery depths. For these were the first fleshy products of his hands. All the fish that move about in the waters, all flying birds, and all their kinds. There's that word kinds again. I bet Kent Hovind would love that one.
Oh, I'm sure.
The sun shone over them for their well-being and over everything that was on the earth, all that sprouts from the ground, all fruit trees, and all animate beings. These 3 great kinds he made on the 5th day.
Wasn't the fruit trees on the 3rd day?
Well, no, he's saying that Hold on. I was guessing that. Okay, so let's try that one more time. So he made
the sun shines down on them, providing well-being on the 5th day.
Yeah, so it's totally fine. But he made animals basically.
Mm-hmm.
Sea animals. There they are.
Yep.
On the 6th day, he made all the land animals, all cattle, and everything that moves about on the earth. After all this, he made humankind. A male and a female he made them. He made him rule everything on earth and in the seas and over flying creatures, animals, everything that moves about on the earth, cattle, and the entire earth. Over all these he made him rule. These 4 kinds he made on the 6th day.
They say the creation of... Okay. The writer in Jubilees 3... No. We're still in Jubilees 2. I don't know why they're talking about Jubilees 3. The creation of animals, Jubilees phrases in such a way that it again sidesteps a potential danger in the wording of Genesis, where 1:24 states, "And God said, let the earth bring forth living creatures of every kind." Jubilees makes sure no one would conclude that the earth helped God in his work of creation by declaring that God himself made all the kinds.
That sounds like evolution to me. I'm glad this guy cleared it up.
Yeah.
So the
Couldn't
devilish science.
Ugh,
I'm
gross.
sorry. I mean science.
Yeah.
With the air quotes. It's not real science.
Yeah, not real science if it's not approved of by the Christian scientists. Ugh.
Either way, the total was 22 kinds. Oh, well, fuck. You know, people
Okay,
have been asking.
finally,
Yeah.
we have
Oh
a
man,
total-
definitive numbers.
We can point that out to Aaron.
Yeah.
Book of Jubilees.
22 kinds.
22 kinds.
Yeah,
That's all
but
there
that's for everything. That includes like the sun and the stars and shit.
22 kinds of things.
He finished all his works on the sixth day. Everything in heaven, on the earth, in the seas, in the depths, in the light, in the darkness, and in every place. And then this next portion is about the Sabbath and Israel. Of course it is. Of course
Great.
it's about the Sabbath. He gave us as a great sign the Sabbath day on which he rested. And there's also a break here. 4Q216 would have had space for considerably more text than a retro version of the Ethiopic readings would supply. There is no clear evidence, however, for what the extra words would have been, other than that they would have dealt with the Sabbath, of course. So that work should be done for 6 days, and then we have another break where more words could have a space. Like there's space for more words there, but it's just fragmentary. And that we should keep Sabbath from all work on the seventh day. He told us, all the angels of the presence and all the angels of holiness, these two kinds, to keep the Sabbath with him in heaven and on earth. But every other angel or spirit that was described, they're still working.
Yeah.
I guess they're not their own beings.
No, they're just objects
Well,
for God
they're
to use.
natural processes.
Yeah.
Objects
But these angels of the holy angels and...
the angels of holiness and the angels of the presence.
Yeah. They are the angels who get to celebrate. They get to party with God.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Sounds like a horrible time, actually. Anyways, to keep the Sabbath with him in heaven and on earth. He said to us, I will now separate a people for myself among my nations.
So at this point, Jubilees is departing from a direct connection with the text of Genesis by introducing a special people into the chapter about creation and the Sabbath. Perhaps one could say, with a little generosity, that it was a natural inference from Genesis 1:26 and 2:1-3, that it was that God would invite his angelic colleagues to rest with him on the Sabbath. This paragraph, subject unrelated to the text of Genesis 1-2, arises. The descendants of Jacob. So
anyways, this is still God talking.
Mm-hmm.
They too will keep Sabbath. I will sanctify a people for myself and will bless them as I sanctified the Sabbath day. I will sanctify them for myself. In this way I will bless them. And there's a note here. The words are enclosed in double brackets because it is not clear that they belong in the text. They are present in Ethiopic manuscripts, but there is insufficient space for them in 4Q216. So yeah, lots of weight is given to the Qumran text. They will be my people, and I will be their God. I have chosen the descendants of Jacob as a treasured people from all the nations. You know, it's interesting that at this point in time, like we haven't had a description of Jacob yet.
Yeah. And this doesn't occur until Leviticus. They aren't separated out as a holy people.
Right. And what about the people between Adam and Jacob?
Right. Well, I guess in Jubilees, they count. Right?
Well, here's the thing. Because, so in verse 23, it starts off saying, there were 22 leaders of humanity from Adam until him.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I see what they're going for. Okay. Let's continue. Maybe it'll help us out. But either way, he's already choosing that line. I have recorded them as my firstborn son and have sanctified them for myself throughout the ages of eternity. And that's weird that he is
his firstborn son.
Yeah. But does Adam count in that? You think he should, right?
You would think.
But if he's saying it, you know, for the descendants of Jacob.
If it were the descendants of Adam, then you
would
wouldn't
be everybody.
be able. Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be everybody.
So I get why they're going for it, right? But like he's not around yet. And also, yeah, that would be your firstborn son. Unless this is more of an adoptionist kind of thing.
I think.
But although firstborn would imply that.
I think it's a prophecy thing, right? Where at this point in time, God
no, it's because they get the inheritance.
Well, yeah, but you remember when we were talking about the themes of the book earlier, how they have like a very deterministic God who determines things before they happen in Jubilees. This could be an instance of God determining prior to the birth of even like Abraham,
right,
that he would make a covenant with Jacob because he's a perfect knowledge of everything that's going to happen. You know,
sure.
That doesn't mean he's going to determine what he's.
Okay. So I do see what you're getting at, but yeah, I also feel like the reference there to just being the firstborn son might be about receiving the inheritance.
Well, that might be part of where that anti-Christian reading comes from, right? Because if we say that the descendants of Jacob are the firstborn sons of Yahweh,
right,
then obviously they have the inheritance of Yahweh rather than the second-born son, right?
Right, or just the son.
Yeah.
Either way. I will tell them about the seventh day so that they may keep Sabbath from all work on it. In this way, he made a sign on it, by which they too would keep Sabbath with us on the seventh day to eat, drink, and bless the Creator of all, as he had blessed them and sanctified them for himself as a treasured people out of all the nations, and to be keeping Sabbath together with us. He made his commands rise as a fine fragrance that is to be acceptable in his presence for all times. There were 22 leaders of humanity from Adam until him, and 22 kinds of works were made until the seventh day. The latter is blessed and holy, and the former too is blessed and holy. Both were made together for holiness and blessing.
Oh, hold on here. That's
verse 23.
Verse 20.
Yeah, just finished verse 23 actually.
From Adam up until him. Okay, it's Jacob.
Yeah,
Jacob.
Either way. It was granted to these that for all times they should be the blessed and holy ones. This is the testimony and the first law, as it was sanctified and blessed on the seventh day. He created the heavens, the earth, and everything that was created in 6 days. The Lord gave a holy festival day to all his creation. For this reason, he gave orders regarding it, that anyone who would do any work on it was to die. Also, the one who would defile it was to die.
Wow. And, there's still parts of Israel today where if you drive through there in your car on the Sabbath, you'll get rocks thrown at it.
Oh, shit.
But, yep. The true transgressions are mentioned in Exodus 31, 14 through 15, showing that the passage remains influential for the author. Quote, "You shall keep the Sabbath, because it is holy for you. Everyone who profanes it shall be put to death. Whoever does any work on it shall be cut off from among the people. 6 days' work shall be done. But on the seventh day is a Sabbath of solemn rest, holy to the Lord. Whoever does any work on the Sabbath day shall be put to death."
Wow, bit of an overreaction, don't you think?
Yeah, it's quite a bit extreme. You're not relaxing hard enough. Die.
Oh, no.
Now you command the Israelites to observe this day so that they may sanctify it, not do any work on it, and not defile it, for it is holier than all other days. Anyone who profanes it is to die, and anyone who does any work on it is to be cut off eternally, so that the Israelites may observe this day throughout their history and not be cut off from the earth.
So there's a series of passages in the book in which the angel temporarily drops his role of reading from the heavenly tablets to offer Moses an aside. The present instance is the first among these cases, whose literary purpose seems to be to underscore the importance of the point being made. There's a lot more written there than that, but
Yeah, but the point is, this isn't like a thing that God was like, "Hey, go tell him this."
Stressing out too hard today. You're gonna die. God's gonna kill you because you're not relaxed.
Kind of a personal note from the
it's
angel.
not sundown yet.
Bummer.
That means the Sabbath hasn't started.
For it is a holy day, it is a blessed day. Everyone who observes it and keeps Sabbath on it from all his work will be holy and blessed throughout all times like us. Inform and tell the Israelites the law that relates to this day, and that they should keep Sabbath on it and not neglect it through the error of their minds, lest they do any work on it. The day on which it is not proper to do what they wish, namely, to prepare on it anything that is to be eaten or drunk, to draw water, to bring in or remove on it anything that one carries in their gates, any work that, and now we're finally learning about all the things that you can't do, what counts as work. Anyways, any work that they had not prepared for themselves in their dwellings on the sixth day.
So the prohibition in Jubilees, with no exceptions or qualifications, contrasts with some Mishnaic teachings, where moving objects in some ways is permitted, although the 39th of the types of prohibited labor on the Sabbath is taking out aught from one domain to another. As noted, Jubilees does not mention the idea of domains, public or private, but the fact that one was not to carry something from one house to another entails that transporting in public areas was included in the prohibition.
They are not to bring anything out or in from house to house on this day, because it is more holy and more blessed than any day of the Jubilee of Jubilees.
Yes.
The Jubilee of Jubilees.
The 49th Jubilee.
Okay.
49 Jubilees in a row is the Jubilee of Jubilees.
Oh, so that's at like the very end of the cycle there.
I'm assuming that it's just like a catch-all phrase, like,
Best of the best.
tens of thousands.
Shit like that.
A long time.
On it we kept Sabbath in heaven before it was made known to all humanity that on it they should keep Sabbath on earth.
So the angels...
Why would they keep that information away?
The angel states that he and his angelic fellows had observed the Sabbath in heaven before it was broadcast on earth, that all should keep Sabbath. Sabbath did not begin at Sinai. Like the Festival of Weeks, the angels kept it in heaven before Israel put it into practice on earth.
Gotcha. Okay, so it's heavenly. As it is in heaven, so it shall be on earth. On it, on it we kept Sabbath in heaven before it was made known to all humanity that on it they should keep Sabbath on earth. The Creator of all blessed, but did not sanctify any peoples and nations to keep Sabbath on it, except Israel alone. To it alone did he give the right to eat, drink, and keep Sabbath on it upon the earth. So their special, what they get for being so pious and holy, is the right to not eat and drink and or prepare stuff or work at all.
Yep.
They get to do all those things
They get to not do those things on the Sabbath.
To do nothing.
And you have to take it.
You have to.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like you have the right to remain silent.
Yeah.
No. You have to do nothing or you get put to death.
Or you will die either spiritually or literally. And yeah, either way.
I mean, they just commanded to kill them if they don't. So.
The Creator of all who created this day blessed it for the purposes of blessing, holiness, and glory more than all other days. This law and testimony were given to the Israelites as an eternal law throughout their history. So it was just a day to praise God.
Yep.
That's what it was. That's what you get. And, I'm going to hand this over to you. If you guys are enjoying the stream so far, please drop a like, subscribe. That was the end of chapter 2. We got another chapter to go. And, you can add some commentary, whatever you feel like doing. But I do have to go get some water because my throat is very dry.
I have to go to the bathroom.
Okay, grab me some water.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, while he's doing that, why don't we hop into it?
Yeah, I mean, I can cover this a little bit, this introductory note.
Yeah, shoot the shit.
Yeah. Jubilees 3 covers the material set forth in Genesis 2:18 through 3:24 with 4:1, but it presents it to the reader in a rather different way. A fundamental change is that the writer does not follow Genesis in providing two creation stories for him. For him, Genesis tells a sequential narrative in the first 3 chapters so that the events of Genesis 2:4b through 3:24 happen after the creation in Genesis 1:1 to 2:4a. Consequently, Jubilees lacks many features of the J creation story, parts of which it includes in its creation account in chapter 2, for example, the Garden of Eden. One item absent from Jubilees at this point is the first scriptural commandment about not eating the fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, although it is assumed later when the woman and serpent converse. And that's in 3:17 to 18. The chapter also provides a fine illustration of how the author associates legal material with scriptural narratives in a way not done in Genesis.
All right.
Yeah. There we go.
Yep.
And I think, and then there's just some textual notes about the Ethiopic copies and some other copies.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me hop into it then. First section, finding a helper for Adam, 3:1 through 7.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's said, right, that in the previous chapter, that he created the male and female. Like we're already retold about that, unless this is literally more of the same, unless he's just going back and in depth. But
maybe during the 6 days of the second week,
we
brought to Adam on the Lord's orders all animals, all cattle, all birds, everything that moves about on the earth, and everything that moves about in the water, in their various kinds and various forms, the animals on the first day, the cattle on the second day, the birds on the third day, everything that moves about on the earth on the fourth day, and the ones that move about in the water on the 5th day. Adam named them all, each with its own name. Whatever he called them became their name.
Oh yeah, do you remember that that whole thing where he was trying to find a helper, but none of them were good enough? That's why. Yeah.
Yeah. During these 5 days, Adam was looking at all of these, male and female, among every kind that was on the earth. But he himself was alone. There was no one whom he found for himself, who would be for him a helper, who was like him. Then the Lord said to us, "It is not good that the man should be alone. Let us make him a helper who is like him." The Lord our God imposed a sound slumber on him, and he fell asleep. Then he took one of his bones for a woman. That rib was the origin of the woman from among his bones. He built up the flesh and its place and built the woman. Then he awakened Adam from his sleep. When he awoke, he got up on the 6th day. Then he brought him to her. He knew her and said to her, "This is now bone from my bone and flesh from my flesh. This one will be called my wife, for she was taken from her husband." I'm glad that marriage doesn't work that way.
So the verse recounts the content of Genesis 2:21 through 22.
Even though they did specify that male and female
were created already.
But I guess whoever it wasn't a good enough partner. Wasn't suitable.
Oh no, was it Lilith? Oh, no, it fucking wasn't. Anyways, the wording is often close to that of Genesis, but the sentence "that rib was the origin," fetrata, of the woman from among his bones is a reformulation in Jubilees. The word fetrat can mean creation, character, origin, and the like. As the following verses make plain. The action of verse 5 did not constitute the creation of the woman, so that a meaning such as character origin is more likely, or so that a meaning such as character origin is more likely here. Jubilees uses the verb build twice for replacing the flesh from the end of Genesis 2:21 and for making the woman, thus distinguishing the action from creation. Genesis 21 through 22 use it just once, with the rib as its object. The rib he made, or literally built, into a woman. It is noteworthy that where Genesis mentions woman one time in 2:21 through 22, Jubilees uses the word 3 times in the parallel 3:5. In addition, the writer twice mentions bones, thus anticipating Adam's declaration that she was bone from his bone in verse 7.
For this reason, a man and a woman are become one, and for this reason he leaves his father and his mother. He associates with his wife, and they become one flesh. Now we're in a second section. Law for a woman who gives birth.
Yeah, so the whole thing about becoming flesh, that same...
It's sex. It's coitus.
And that imagery came up before as well.
Yeah. In the first week, this is 3:8 through 14 is the law for a woman who gives birth.
Yeah.
In the first week, Adam and his wife, the rib, were created. And in the second week, he showed her to him. Therefore, a commandment was given to keep women in their defilement 7 days for a male child, and for a female, 2 units of 7 days. So, yes, Adam and Eve were created at the same time, but Eve was Adam's rib.
Amazing. Just brilliant. So yeah, let's talk about this here. So
they have this commandment that women get kept away for a week after a son's born, 2 weeks after a woman.
We have covered that here. So again, Genesis is not the source of information for the number. These stretches of time, 40 and 80 days, serve as an additional connector with Leviticus 12. Leviticus 12:2 mentions the case of a woman who bears a male child and her uncleanliness for 7 days. And verse 4 prescribes about the mother, her time of blood purification shall be 33 days. She shall not touch any holy thing or come into the sanctuary until the days of her purification are completed. Verse 5 deals with the mother of a girl. If she bears a female child, she shall be unclean for 2 weeks. As in her menstruation, her time of blood purification shall be 66 days. So if she has a boy, she is impure for 7 days, and in the time of her blood purification for another 33 days, yielding a total of 40. If she has a girl, the times are doubled. The first period is 14 days, and the second lasts 66 for a total of 80. Leviticus does not add up the numbers. Jubilees totals only the second set. As Leviticus 12 indicates, the longer spans are the times of the mother's blood purification. Adam, the male, offers the precedent for the case of one who bears a son, as he remained outside of the garden, a sanctuary, see below, for 40 days. The woman, the female, provides the model for the case of one who gives birth to a girl, since she stayed away for 80 days. This is the next item mentioned in Leviticus 12, and thus it receives treatment in verse 9.
Okay, I haven't gotten into that yet. After 40 days had come to an end for Adam in the land where he was created, we brought him into the Garden of Eden to work and keep it. His wife was brought there on the 80th day. After this, she entered the Garden of Eden. For this reason, a commandment was written in the heavenly tablets for one who gives birth to a child. If she gives birth to a male, she is to remain in her impurity for 7 days, like the first 7 days. Then for 33 days she is to remain in the blood of her purification. She is not to touch any sacred thing nor enter the sanctuary until she completes these days for a male. As for a female, she is to remain in her impurity for 2 weeks of days, like the first 2 weeks, and 66 days in the blood of her purification. Their total is 80 days. After she had completed these 80 days, we brought her into the Garden of Eden, because it is the holiest in the entire earth, and every tree that is planted in it is holy. For this reason, the law of these days has been ordained for the one who gives birth to a male or female. She is not to touch any sacred thing nor enter the sanctuary until the time when those days for a male or a female are completed. These are the law and testimony that were written for Israel to keep for all times. This is not a coherent story.
Yeah, so there's
So after 2 weeks, right? 2 weeks, Eve's there. Now...
No, so in the second week.
Yeah, in the second week, Eve's there. Now, after only a short while after this, 40 days, right? 40 days from when Adam was created. It's not long enough to grow a fetus into a child and give birth. But for Eve to not be admitted into the Garden of Eden for 80 days means that the category that would fit into is that she gave birth to a daughter. Now, these aren't the rules for women who are birthed. This is the rules for women who give birth. Why would Eve not be able to go into the garden for 80 days if she did not give birth?
That's a very good question.
Dun, dun, dun.
So the section closes with comments about the garden and the law. The angels conducted the woman, still unnamed, into the garden once the 80 days had run their course. It doesn't actually give anything on why she's not included in there.
Yeah, it can't be the children because there's because they give rules for the male children, right? And
Sure.
they can't. But if it were about the children,
how much time
and
has passed?
Right. If it were about the children and not about the mother, then the males wouldn't be allowed into sanctuaries to have the bris, right? After 8 days, right? But so it's only the females who aren't allowed in, but she hasn't given birth. She hasn't had the time to conceive, really.
Yeah, I see what you're going for, and I do not have an answer for you.
Absurdity.
Yeah, got nothing.
Well, we get 7 good years, 15 through 16. During the first week of the first Jubilee, Adam and his wife spent the 7 years in the Garden of Eden working and gardening it. We gave him work and were teaching him how to do everything that was appropriate for working it. While he was working it, he was naked, but did not realize it, nor was he ashamed. He would guard the garden against birds, animals, and cattle. He would gather its fruits and eat it, and would store its surplus for himself and his wife. He would store what was being kept. Another section, sin and expulsion, 17 through 35. When the conclusion of these 7 years, which had completed there arrived, 7 years exactly, in the second month, on the 17th, the serpent came and approached the woman. The serpent said to the woman, "Is it from all the fruits of the trees of the garden that the Lord has commanded you, do not eat from it?" She said to him, "From all the fruits of the trees that are in the garden, the Lord told us, eat. But from the fruit of the tree that is in the middle of the garden, he told us, do not eat from it, and do not touch it, so that you may not die." Then the serpent said to the woman, "You will not really die, because the Lord knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened. You will become like gods, and you will know good and evil." The woman saw that the tree was delightful and pleasing to the eye, and that its fruit was good to eat. So she took some of it and ate it. She first covered her shame with fig leaves and then gave it to Adam. He ate it, his eyes were opened, and he saw that he was naked. He took fig leaves and sewed them. Thus he made himself an apron and covered his shame. The Lord cursed the serpent and was angry at it forever. At the woman, too, he was angry because she had listened to the serpent and had eaten. He said to her, "I will indeed multiply your sadness and your pain. Bear children in sadness. Your place of refuge will be with your husband. He will rule over you."
You know, it's kind of weird how now that pops up. So I guess beforehand, having a child would have been painless, or perhaps there was some other method of conceiving.
And also patriarchy is a consequence of original sin.
Of course. Yeah, I do not know. I was still trying to find an answer to the question before about how she would even be outside of the garden in the first place.
It doesn't, it throws a bunch of numbers at you, and it's like, here's a rule, and here's a rule, and here's why, but it doesn't actually give you a reason.
Dun.
Yep. Then he said to Adam, "Because you listened to your wife and ate from the tree which I commanded you not to eat, may the ground be cursed on account of you. May it grow thorns and thistles for you. Eat your food in the sweat of your face until you return to the earth from which you were taken. For earth you are, and to earth you will return." So this is, presumably, I guess, Adam was immortal before this happened.
Yes.
Yeah. He made clothing out of skins for them, clothed them, and dismissed them from the Garden of Eden. On that day, as he was leaving the garden, he burned incense as a pleasing fragrance, frankincense, galbanum, stacked, and aromatic spices. In the early morning, when the sun rose, at the time when he covered his shame. On that day, the mouths of all the animals, the cattle, the birds, everything that walks, and everything that moves about, were made incapable of speaking, because all of them used to converse with one another in one language and one tongue.
Well, damn, we weren't told about that.
No.
I guess
What verse is that exactly?
That is verse 28.
28.
Yeah, this is a detail. Maybe it's like a holdover from the Tower of Babel story.
Yeah, something very, very
Just
close to that at least.
Threw in there.
Yes. So yeah, all this stuff talking. The expression "one language and one tongue" is the first clue in the text of Jubilees that the writer is drawing parallels between this episode and the story of the Tower of Babel, after which, on his view, knowledge of Hebrew was lost until the angel of the presence taught it to Abram. Of course.
Sure. He dismissed from the Garden of Eden all the animate beings that were in the Garden of Eden. All animate beings were dispersed, each by its kind and each by its nature, into the places that had been created for them. But of all the animals and cattle, he permitted Adam alone to cover his shame. For this reason, it has been commanded in the tablets regarding those who know the judgment of the law, that they cover their shame and not uncover themselves as the nations uncover themselves. At the beginning of the 4th month, Adam and his wife departed from the Garden of Eden. They lived in the land of Elda, in the land where they were created.
So I was looking through here, and there's one possible answer to the thing before. Maybe they just weren't initially allowed into the garden because they were somehow impure. Just like, priests with blemishes and stuff can't enter. Yeah, so that was one of the explanations that was given, but I'm not sure how great that is.
Impure by virtue of having been created.
I don't know, man. I don't know why.
Adam named his wife Eve. They were childless throughout the first Jubilee. Afterwards, he knew her. He himself was working in the land as he had been
there's
taught
no way
in the Garden of Eden. Yeah, there's no way. Why would they associate the rules for childbirth with that part of the story? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I'm gonna look back in here.
But that is the end of the chapter.
Is it? Okay, that's nice.
Yep.
So the verses about the woman, that was what, through 14, right? Yeah, okay. So here's something cool. Here's an excursus where Jubilees 3, 9 through 14 and 29 through 31 interpolated. So Kugel finds 2 insertions by his interpolator in chapters 3, verses 9 through 14 and 29 through 31. In verses 9 through 14, note the terms tablets in verses 10 and law and testimony in verse 14. The interpolator misunderstood what the author was saying about Adam's creation in the first week and the presentation of the woman in the second, and the connection of these times with the 1 and 2 week periods mentioned in Leviticus 12. He notes that Leviticus 12 also mentioned times of 33 and 66 days and introduced 2 new relative to Genesis items to explain them. The different times Adam and his wife were outside the garden and the Garden of Eden as a temple. The author did not imply that the man and woman were impure, but the interpolator thought that they were. And for that reason, they had to wait the appropriate length of times before entering the garden. But his contribution created an absurdity in that God could not have transferred impurity to them. Moreover, Leviticus 12 speaks about the impurity of the mother, not that of the child. In this case, Kugel has, as others mentioned above, introduced the notion of impurity for Adam and the woman where Jubilees does not. The only places where the terms for impurity occur in Jubilees 3, 9 through 14 are in citations from Leviticus 12. The comparison of the writer of Jubilees makes between the first couple and the law of Leviticus 12 has to do with units of time, not with purity and impurity. The author of Jubilees offered an explanation for the unexplained numbers in Leviticus 12 and said not a word about impurity for Adam and the woman. It should be added that Kugel introduces an inconsistency in claiming that his interpolator was responsible for the idea of the garden as a sanctuary, since the idea is present in 2 other passages in Jubilees, neither of which he assigns to the interpolator. The second insertion Kugel finds in verses 29 through 31. He thinks the author dealt with clothing only in connection with Adam's exercising the office of priest, since the Torah requires that a priest be properly clothed when sacrificing, as Adam was in verse 27. However, the interpolator used the reference to clothing to address the issue of nudity that was connected with the Hellenistic gymnasium and called this a law written on the tablets. but there is no reason to think that the author could not have found a suggestion of priestly garments in Genesis 3:21 and also attributed a larger significance to the fact that the first couple were clothed. Kugel thinks the author attached his teaching against nudity to the instance of Noah. He refers to Jubilees 7:20, but is there a reason why he could not? But is there a reason why he could not also have located his disapproval in the Eden story? So I'm thinking that I'm not really convinced that that second part is an interpolation. But the part about, the childbearing stuff, that actually really makes sense.
Yeah, it's just based off of the author of Jubilees' poor interpretation of pre-existing.
Yeah, or just an interpolator who added that in there.
Yeah, one or the other. But, I mean, either way, it's functionally the author of Jubilees. It was an interpolator.
Sure.
But yeah, that's the show today. Pretty long one today.
Yeah, pretty long one. But you know what? We covered a lot of interesting stuff.
Yeah.
This commentary is fantastic.
Yeah. Vanderkam, we should get him on here.
I don't even. Is he even alive? I don't even know.
I don't know.
Okay.
I thought you would know.
I don't know.
Everyone, figure out if James Vanderkam
I'll Google it.
is alive. And if he is,
we're going to try to get him on the show? I don't know.
I don't know.
I have no idea, guys.
Well, if you enjoyed today's stream, check us out on Patreon. For $1 a month, you can get the scripts for our scripted shows. For $5 a month, you can get Lawrence's book and any other books that we self-publish in the future. For $10 a month, you get entered into a monthly T-shirt giveaway where we spin a wheel and whoever wins gets a T-shirt.
Which we are doing on Sunday.
Yep. And for $20 a month, you get invited to live events we might do in the future after pandemic season is over. You also get invited to patron hangouts, which we do once a month. And for $50 a month, you can be on one of our weekly shows once a month.
Yeah.
And
good times.
Whenever you get one of the ones, you get all the previous ones too. And it's not either or.
Yeah.
Right. In addition to that, we have an Amazon wish list. On the Amazon wish list, we have
filled with books.
Tons of books that we could use on this show. We could use on other shows. We could use to research things.
And they can help us make videos and stuff. Yeah.
Yep. If you buy us a book, we'll read it so you don't have to, just like the Bible and the Apocrypha. And there are also wacky and fun T-shirts.
On our Teespring.
Yep. You don't have to get it from a giveaway. You can just buy the shirts.
Yeah. Let's see what else we got going on. Facebook and Twitter, free to follow us on there.
Facebook and Twitter.
More
videos coming up in the future.
Yes, as YouTubers, we do that.
Yep. And that's
all for this week, and we will see you